Okay. Oh, yeah. All right, guys, welcome back. It is not exactly the weather I'm looking for out here because we don't have much snow, but I'm going to take advantage of what little snow we have today to tell you about my snow machines, my snowmobiles. What you see here are 3 Skidoos, 2 of which you've seen before. 1, which is brand new, has sort of been my secret that I've been keeping over the last probably 6 or 7 months from you guys, and I did it for a reason. You guys don't want to probably see much about snowmobiles until I'm actually going to be using it. And so I held back on showing you this thing, which I picked up in the spring. And what this is essentially my dream snowmobile. Now, I would rather have the Skandic model of this in the 2022 model. But for my budget, the 2006 you see here, Skandic Super Wide Track, is my dream sled and one that I picked up on a whim back in the spring. So these 3 snow machines, they get used around the property. I use it for hauling out wood. I use it for going for little snowmobile rides. I use it for all kinds of things. And this one in particular, my newly acquired Skidoo Skandic Super Wide Track with the 550 fan engine, this will be my workhorse. That's the reason I bought this thing. Now, let's just look at where I started, and then I'll talk about this new machine. What we have here are 2 older machines, and 2006 is actually older too, but this is the machine I started with. This is a 2003 Skidoo 550 fan engine Grand Touring, and this thing has a 136-inch track, 15 inches wide. This thing was my workhorse up until now. This thing is used for a variety of things. As I mentioned, I haul wood out with it, I groom trails with it, I get around in the winter with it, but it's you know, it's not a pure utility sled. it definitely had some room for improvement. If we have a look at it, you know, it's got some bumps and bruises. If you guys tuned into the channel last winter, you would have seen me take this out by accident with a winch. Tried to glue it back on there, didn't have much success. Have to figure out a solution to that. Aside from that, it doesn't have any other cosmetic damage besides this back tail flap here, this back piece of plastic here. You guys can see where it's all ripped to shreds here. That's because when you reverse in really deep snow, sometimes this thing gets sucked in underneath the track. And if we look down here, you can see I've got some studs here, and these studs grabbed hold of the tail flap, and well, the rest is history. So 15-inch track, 136 inches long, pretty good condition overall. Definitely happy with it, but it's going to be replaced by something that can really do some hauling, take the weight. So one of the reasons I had this sled originally for utility purposes is because a friend of mine owned it. He takes very good care of his equipment, and so he offered to sell it to me. I needed a snow machine, and so I bought it. Now, if we have a look under the hood here, you're going to see the heart of this thing. Here's the 550 fan engine. I had to have a look down there. 550 fan engine, not a lot really to tell you about. One thing that I like about this particular snowmobile is that fan engine. Now, it's not the most fuel efficient thing, I can tell you that right now. This thing drinks fuel, but for being a two-stroke of the era, it's pretty low maintenance. It doesn't require a lot. I just put injector oil in there, so that gets injected right in the engine, and that mixes with the fuel. With the fan, what that allows me to do is to not worry about heat exchangers, which if you guys snowmobile or you know about snowmobiles, underneath the tunnel, so this aluminum piece that runs underneath the seat, typically there are heat exchangers for two-stroke machines and four-stroke machines, which cool the snowmobile. And so snow jumps up off the track, hits the heat exchanger, which is mounted on the underside of the tunnel, provides cooling for the engine. But with the fan models, I don't need that, which is very convenient. It also allows me to run these things in a variety of temperatures and not have to necessarily worry about overheating. Today it is right around freezing mark, so right around 0 degrees Celsius. These things fire up no problem. They don't run the greatest when it's above 0 or above freezing, but they still run the fan on the engine. If we have a quick look here, may not be able to see it. It's in there. But anyways, the fan on this thing provides the cooling without that extra coolant running through the heat exchangers. Anyways, let's look at the next machine here. This was my second acquisition. This right here is a 1997 Skidoo Touring E. And if we look at it, this thing is definitely older than my 2003. It's got a bit more wear on it, but it's very, very reliable nonetheless. If we flip the hood on this thing, one of the reasons I bought this thing was I wanted a second machine for guests and family to get around on. I wanted something that was equally as reliable as my 550 fan engine, and so I bought this, which has its little brother, the 380 fan engine. And if we look here, there's the heart of it, and it's quite dirty at this point. I got to get in here and maybe clean it a little bit, but it hasn't been used obviously since last winter. 380 fan engine, you can see the fan right there that provides all the cooling. Very easy to work on machine. You can see the two carburetors right here. There's my oil, which injects into the engine, and that's about it. So 380 fan, very, very reliable. Some things you'll notice that are different on this guy right here. When you pull this lever, it's hard to do from this angle, but when you pull that puts it into reverse. Whereas on my 2003, you guys would have seen me press that button. That button actually causes the engine to switch from rotating one direction to rotating the other direction to allow the snowmobile to go backwards. This is all mechanical. Pull that lever, you have some mechanism which causes it to go in reverse. So besides being dirty, if we look at this machine here, everything is pretty standard on these older Skidoos. You've got on the left a heated grip here, heated thumb. There's your choke. Here's you won't be able to see it, but there's the switch for actually turning on the heated grips and heated thumb. All right, the other one there, so heated grip, heated thumb. There's the key to turn things on, obviously your gas tank. Seat's got a few rips in it. Got a little storage compartment back here. Probably mice in there right now. Nope, we're good to go. And besides that, you got a little hitch on the back. I tow around the groomer every once in a while, but for the most part, it doesn't do much utility work. Now this unit here is 136-inch track by 15 inches wide. And the reason that's important is I'm going to talk about my new sled in just a minute and why I wanted that new sled. If we look at this particular snow machine, you can see a little bit of wear there on the track, but for the most part, it looks like it's half decent. So hopefully this lasts a few more seasons before I have to dump some money into it. But overall, 2003 97, they're nice machines for getting around on. Aluminum tunnel means they're not going to rust. Some of the things I like about these older sleds is the fact that they have a pull start in addition to electric start. You would have seen me a minute ago. I actually drained this battery. I didn't have it charged up by accident, so I'll get it charged. But if you're out on the trail and for whatever reason the battery won't start the machine, you can always use the pull start, which is quite nice. Now for me, I could just go out and tow it in with something because it's not far. But if you're out far, you know, ice fishing or who knows what you're doing, and you don't have anything except an electric start, maybe no one's around, well, you're really going to be wishing you had a pull start if that battery gives out. All right, so let's look at this thing right behind me, my new acquisition, my new snow machine. I didn't intend on buying this last spring, but I've always wanted one, and a deal came up and I had to jump on it. Whether I should have or not is to be seen. Right here is the 2003 Skidoo Skandic super wide track. I saw this for the first time at a friend's house of mine several years ago. He was using it to groom ski trails, cross-country ski trails. And then I saw it at a few ski resorts, and I thought, boy, that thing would be really, really good at my place, where I need something that's going to get really good flotation for off-trail, really good pulling power, and it's going to be reliable. And that's where this came to be. This unit's got the 550 fan engine, and this is the exact same engine as my 2003 Grand Touring over there. I like the fan-cooled engines, as you can tell. Doesn't have a heat exchanger, and from my experience, they're very, very reliable. One of the downsides with these, they are very thirsty, and so I'm going to be spending a little bit more in fuel, but that's hopefully going to allow me to have a very reliable machine. Let's have a look at this in more detail. So it's very clean at this point. I just got it out of the shop. I've been working on this thing over the last several months. I haven't been filming it because it's been very warm out and we've been doing other stuff, but I have been plugging away on this because it wasn't perfect when I got it. When I got it, there was actually some rust starting to form on the tunnel, which is this piece right here. And the reason that is because that tunnel is made of steel. It's not made of aluminum like my other two machines. So what had happened, the person I bought it from, they used it for ice fishing. They used it for going way into northern Ontario and northern Quebec, Canada for hunting. And they didn't really keep up on the maintenance after a while, and it was starting to show. So I got it into the shop. I got the track off. I got the basically the whole undercarriage of the snowmobile off. And what I did was I went over everything. I went over all of these bogey wheels here, and I replaced every bearing. And if you look here, how many wheels are under there? There's a lot. There's a lot of wheels under there. I can't quite remember how many, but I just remember there being a lot. So I got very good at punching out bearings. I also did some replacing of these on the bottom here, which runs between the skid, the metal part of this lower undercarriage, and the actual track. So these, some people call them high facts, so I replaced those. I also replaced some of these washers here. I also did some repair on some of the nuts and bolts, which were seized up. Put all new stuff on here, made sure it was tight and Loctited where necessary. Put some of the new plastic pieces on, adjusted the limiter strap way up there, and made sure to service the suspension. So while I had the skid off the machine, so the undercarriage off the machine, I went ahead and stripped down all the paint, got rid of all the rust on this steel tunnel, and I used some really good primer, used some good paint, and I made sure everything was sealed. Now you're going to notice there's a bit of a film on it right now. What that is, it's the undercoating material that I use typically on my truck. That's going to slow down any future rust. In addition to that, there were some things like you're going to notice on this flat back here, it's shorter than normal. It's because the lower part was all ripped up. And so I just cut it off clean. If that's a problem, I'll get another one that's longer. Went ahead, made sure that the light was intact here. There's a little bit of wiring I had to do back here. Still have to button that up. Making our way this way. Aside from that, I went ahead and just cleaned the hood there. I noticed that I missed out on this right here. I probably should have touched up the paint there, but I forgot. So let's have a look under the hood here. And so there's the 550 fan engine, and it looks pretty clean at this point. What I did with it was I took the entire exhaust off. I took off the oil reservoir here. I went ahead and cleaned all the inside of the engine bay. I checked all the wiring. Over on this side, what you guys are going to notice, which is different from the other machines, is that's a transmission, which is connected via shaft to this lever. This transmission allows me to have a low and a high gear in addition to neutral and reverse. This is what allows me to do all the pulling, the heavy pulling, compared with my other machines which don't have a transmission. So that's what I was actually wanting to buy. This right here, I replaced all the oil in it, checked the belt, which is underneath of this, checked inside the air filter box there, or air box, just to make sure everything looked good. I had the carburetors off, I cleaned both of those, checked all the fuel lines. If we look down this way, I replaced the oil filter. There's also a fuel filter I replaced. Just made sure to grease everything so we're ready to go. But if we look inside there, everything looks clean. And I also touched up the paint in here where it needed. I got rid of any rust that was needed, painted the exhaust here, and you probably won't be able to see, but back in there I replaced the battery for starting. So that was a heck of a lot of work. This took me a lot of time. If you can imagine, this is an older machine, so in addition to taking the time to clean everything, reassemble it, check it, I also had a heck of a time getting parts. Now I know a really good place to get parts. They have connections, and I don't know how they do it, but they seem to find parts for things that are not even made anymore. And so they really helped me out and allowed me to get this thing back up and running. So one of the reasons I ended up buying this thing, in addition to being really good at pulling, was for the flotation. These two snow machines, which I started with, have a 15-inch wide track by 136 by 121. This thing has a 24-inch wide track with 156 inches of length. This has a lot more track on the ground compared to those. If you've ridden a snow machine off trail before and you're towing anything, or even if you're not, that 15-inch wide track just digs a hole when things start getting soft or things start getting heavy on a sled. This right back here, look at that, 24 inches wide. That is an absolute ton of flotation compared to this, 15 and 15. So that 24 inches is really going to make all the difference, especially when I get a big load of logs on here with that new bobsleigh I have. Another interesting thing about these Skandic super wide tracks is the back part of the skid. If we look at this back axle here, it's got 4 wheels on it. It's connected with this steel shaft here to the rest of the skid. And you'll notice right here, there's also what looks to be a bunch of washers. These actually are cup washers, which flex a little bit or move a little bit when there's pressure applied to them. Now what that allows for is the back part of this track to articulate up and down just a little bit. That's really good because that, as far as I know, helps with flotation. It also helps when you're reversing and you've got some really deep snow. Let's look at these 3 tracks here. You can see this one, it's sitting on the ground right here, but if you come to the back here, see how it's up off the ground just a little bit? Well, if you compare that with my other machines, these ones are touching all the way from the rear axle all the way. Same thing over here. And so if you can imagine, more than one time I've tried to reverse when you're in deep snow, and the back part of this track here just digs a hole and you don't go anywhere. Whereas that Skandic, it's supposed to ride up and onto the snow so you can keep getting out of wherever you're into. Another neat thing on this, have a look at the amount of space you have back here to put some sort of a cargo box. I'm going to be building something at some point. That way I can keep, you know, my coat, my hat, my coffee, aka sludge. Put my chainsaw in there, some fuel, and I've got all kinds of room still to sit and maneuver this thing. Now let's stiff. There we go. Let's have a look under the seat, and you'll notice it looks kind of oily. That's because it is. This had to be reworked quite a bit. There's quite a substantial amount of rust in here, and so I ended up taking this off, ended up grinding down all the rust, priming it, painting it, and this is what you see. But this is nice to store some things in. You can have it covered up so the snow is not going to get after it. One more thing about this unit, if you've never ridden a 24-inch wide track machine, have a look at how wide this thing is. Your feet are, you know, really far apart here compared with these units here. And because of that, you're going to notice that it could be uncomfortable on long rides. If I have a sit on this, check that out. You guys see my feet down there? That's pretty far apart. Now, this isn't bad for me because I'm not going too far, and I'm probably going to be leaning off the side here and there. But if I was going on a long tour, this would not be ideal. Some of the other nice things up here with this Skandic is how high the handlebars are. It allows me to stand up, and it allows me to maneuver this beast because it's so wide it doesn't exactly turn that great. Right here is the handle as well. I can sort of pull on that to lean one way or another. You'll notice here something I had to replace or jerry rig was I had to throw some electrical tape on this grip. The end ripped off, but luckily the heated grip still works. Down below you'll see you got your switches for your thumb heater, your grip heater. On the right we've got our 12-volt plug. It's kind of nice. You can plug in anything you need to, and there's your choke and your key. And just like my other machines, this one has a pull start just in case the battery gives out when you're out and about. Now, last thing I'm going to mention is the transmission. I talked about it briefly before. Here's the lever that controls it. Right now I'm in low gear, which allows me to tow some heavy loads. And if I were to click this that way, I'm in high gear. In the middle is neutral. And normally if I wanted to go into reverse, once I'm in neutral, I could push forward and turn it to the left, and then the machine goes backwards. So the engine always rotates in the same direction. The only thing that's changing is some gears inside the transmission. And you guys can see how that's hooked up here. Here's my transmission. I've got my brake here. Transmission is hooked to the drive belt here. There's my clutch, and then the engine and the drive shaft comes off and into that clutch. So that's that. Well guys, there we have it. There are my 3 snow machines, 1, 2, and my 3rd most recent snow machine. If any of these are going to stay around here for long, I can tell you it's going to be that Skandic super wide track. I feel like I put in so much effort, blood, sweat, and tears in order to keeping it alive that there's no way I could possibly get rid of it. Not to mention the utility value around here, hauling wood or, you know, pulling people around for that matter is very, very high. So I think it's going to be a great addition. One last thing, let's just take it out for a little ride. There's not much snow, so I'm not going to go flying around here, but we'll go for a little ride just around. You guys can see exactly what it sounds like and what it feels like. Here we go. All right, guys, I got to tell you, that is a really fun machine. That turns really, really well with good carbides and the skis. And I think this is going to be my new favorite thing to do in the wintertime. Aside from sawing wood and winching wood and doing all that sort of thing, this will be one of those favorite things. I'm really impressed with this overall. I know it's an old machine for many of you. For me, though, it is my newest machine. I'm very happy to have it. Feel very fortunate to have it. And so if you do have one of these, let me know how you're making out with it down below. 550 fan engine is a winner in my books. I'm going to be spending money on fuel, but I'll be having a good time doing it. Guys, you all take care out there. Any questions, comments, concerns, you know where it goes down below. Be well, enjoy winter. See you next time.